Would have won
He
again.
would have won again.
Tell my foggy my voice every day.
Let's see if I can get in.
Council said we're supposed to. I'm having trouble.
Time?
Oh, it's after time.
Okay.
Like a steroid?
I would ask if you wanted water, but I won't. Call to order. Good evening.
Okay. Nancy Kupka.
Here.
Terry Pavasich.
Here.
Mike Davenport.
Here.
Cheryl Fuller.
Here.
Dan Nicholas. Here. Rick Seminato.
Here.
And Don Renner.
Here.
Great. We have a quorum. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great. Now, for one of our favorites, student perspectives.
We might
Or
have to go
perhaps
to
not.
another agenda item and then come back.
back.
Our
Okay.
students, I think with the weather and stuff
Yeah.
that they're running a little behind, but PJ's one of them, actually.
Okay.
And then two others.
One of our
so
own.
If we could.
We'll come back to that, okay? Let's move on to the board workshop, 2018-19 staffing and curriculum overview.
Sure. So as I explained last month, just to review, this used to be a single closed session agenda or closed session meeting, and we were advised by legal counsel that this should be moved to an open session discussion. We've broken this up over 3 meetings. We gave you kind of the overview of the big programmatic changes the last month, or last meeting, was that last month too? Yeah.
Last month, and we
I was right on both accounts. This meeting, the principals are going to highlight the teachers that will be receiving tenure this year. And at the next board meeting, we'll bring you the full worksheet with all of the FTE changes that are in there, including the programs that we highlighted at the last meeting. So the tenure one seems a little weird because typically when we talk about specific employees, it's related to things like compensation or salary or those kinds of things, and those are totally appropriate conversations to have in closed session. However, tenure recommendations are a little bit different because a board doesn't take action on approving tenure. When a teacher makes it to their 4th year and they've met certain criteria that they, through their evaluation process, they're brought back for a 5th year. What a board would approve would be a teacher that we're not bringing back. So it's kind of the opposite process, right? So if there was a teacher we were not bringing back after their 4th year, and this has happened with the board before, we'd be meeting in months in advance, probably in closed sessions, to talk through what our concerns are with this teacher, the direction that we're going to go, and that we're going to not offer this teacher tenure. Instead, we're going to recommend that this teacher be terminated as a result, okay, or not brought back. And in the 4th year, that has to be for cause. We have to have some kind of a rationale for that to occur. Otherwise, a teacher the board never approves tenured teachers. They're informed of teachers that are receiving tenure. So it's kind of the opposite of this. So this is the opportunity where we make you aware of the teachers that have done 4 great years of work for us, have gone through this very rigorous evaluation process, and it gives the principals an opportunity to kind of, in public, provide some highlights of some of our newer teachers that have established themselves within the district. I like to say they've made it through the tryouts, they're proven that they're good enough to be on our team, and then it's our job to make sure that they continue to improve and get better and do great things here over the course of the rest of their career. So that's kind of the mechanics. As always, if a board member has a specific question about an employee, they can always reach out to me. It's totally appropriate to do that. Obviously not in a public meeting, and we can always, if we have specific concerns about an employee, we could take that to a closed session and then discuss that specific employee's performance in a closed session. But with all of these employees, we have no concerns about their performance. Otherwise, we take that tenure recommendation quite seriously, and the general rule for us is we're not going to offer somebody tenure unless we're comfortable with them being here. So that's kind of the mechanics of how this all works and why our legal counsel is advised that we go about it in this process in open rather than in closed. If there was somebody we weren't going to recommend for tenure, you would have heard about them well in advance. We would have been talking about this in closed session meetings leading up to tonight.
Okay, so if anyone has any concerns or questions
About individual
about
staff.
individual staff after this meeting, they should email Hank or
Correct.
ask them in public.
Yep. And any questions about the process or procedure, though? Because I know it's different than years past, so I just want to make sure that it kind of made sense. All right, so at this time, I'm going to turn it over to, who's going first? Janice? Janice gets to go first this time. And
Age before beauty, is that what we decided? Unfortunately, this is true.
That's an old Dorothy Parker joke. Some young man opened a door for her and said, age before beauty, and she said, pearls before swine. I'm just
And Janice will highlight our North Star.
I will. This is really fun for me because I was guiding our new teachers in the API role. So I got to work very closely with these with this group of staff members. And as I was looking at their names, I realized that two of them have since gotten married and one of them have had a baby. So it's kind of fun to see the life changes too. So the first one is Katie Adamchuk, and she's a math teacher. She originally taught somewhere else, but she's a Downers Grove North alum, and she actually was in John Heldman's class, so that was nice. And she has been very glad to be at North High School again. She works a lot with our students who need extra support. She teaches several of our Math S classes. That's that period and a half class. And she really does an excellent job of empowering our students by building an environment where students work very well together and use each other as resources to attack the high-level thinking that's required in even what we would consider a lower-level course, because they really are all at target level. She's also an avid tutor and a Strive tutor, and that's great because then she uses some of those principles in her own classroom as well. And she continues to grow professionally herself by working with a math coach, and she is currently pursuing her master's degree in curriculum and instruction. Larry Baca is a CTE teacher, so career and technical education, and he also teaches our cooperative work training class, so that's the one that places our students out in local businesses and goes out and observes them in the workplace. He's working with our entrepreneur students right now doing the pizza challenge. So this Thursday from 11 to, I forget what time, 7, 8 o'clock, something like that, at Wood Grain Pizza, the different classes each create their own pizza, and actually it's probably the marketing class, and they're trying to get people to buy their pizza. So that's one of the things they do, very real-world applications in his classes. He also coaches gymnastics, boys gymnastics, and wrestling as well, and he sponsors DECA. And if you remember, we've had some DECA students here in the past. I want to say that this year, I think we have like 125 students in DECA, which is incredible that he sponsors by himself. We had a new record of 36 state qualifiers. 12 of those students placed in the top 10 in their event, and 3 of our students took first place at state. So really great success, and you see that both in the classes and then, of course, in the extracurricular. He's a very supportive teacher and coach, challenges students to do their best, again, creating that warm and inviting environment. He also works with a literacy coach and is pursuing a master's degree, this time in educational leadership. Jory Burtnett is our Special Services Department Chair, and she has really done a great job of advocating for our students with special needs. So whether that be getting them in the least restrictive environment or making sure that our co-teachers have common planning time, that they are appropriately placed together, and that they have gotten appropriate professional development, she has been a strong advocate for both her students and her staff. I have always been really impressed that she knows the kids. When I mention somebody, she can tell me right off the top of her head things about those students, and that is very impressive, thinking of the number of students that we have at North High with special needs. And that also enables her to work really well with parents. One of the things that she does that is above and beyond is she goes out to the 8th grade transition meetings so that she can meet with the parents right away, so that they get off to a good foot before they have to start talking about difficult things. And that takes a lot of time for her, and it's very stressful. And I did say to her, do you need to do this? And she said, yes, I do, because this sets me up for the next 4 years. So I really appreciate that. We also hired at the same year Janae Demlow, who is one of our, she's a chair, she's our social studies department chair. She has presented here in the past. As you know, she had to help the departments navigate with the new civics requirement. But she has also done quite a bit in her department to bring social studies teachers together. And I don't know what you know about social studies people. Gina can tell you, Pete can tell you. As an English teacher, I can tell you that we're very similar. We don't always get along and have the same perspectives. So to bring everybody together is quite a feat. And Janae has done an amazing job of bringing her department together, whether it's the econ person who's all about the money and the financial planning, or the psychology and the sociology who's all about saving the world. They're all working really well together. She herself teaches psychology and sociology, and I think if you were to ask most students, they would describe her as someone who has a really big heart, and the staff would say that as well. It is very rare that you would go into her office on a given day and not find a student in her office talking to her, or a staff member, even students who are not in her own classes. She has that reputation, and she just does an amazing job. She's also a fantastic teacher. I had the pleasure of seeing all of these teachers teach. Tonight, actually, so we've got one student here, but so far, and then you're going to hear about United Men of Strength and United Women of Strength, and Janae is one of our sponsors along with Courtney White, and both of them were nominated and accepted as Student Activity Directors of the Year, and they're going to be recognized in April, right? April 13th or something like that. So she does a lot. We're really proud to have her with us. She also works with a literacy coach. Natalie Jenkins is a math teacher who student taught at South and now teaches with us. She co-teaches quite a bit. She also works a lot with the S students, and she's fantastic at that. She coaches soccer, and I think uses a lot of the same principles in both the classroom and out on the field of challenging students appropriately. She works great with her co-teacher, and they do amazing things together. She's also a member of our PBIS team, and she works with an instructional coach as well and is pursuing her master's degree. Steve Larson is another math teacher. He also co-teaches, so there's a little bit of a theme here. If you were to meet Steve, you would think that he's really kind of quiet, but he's actually known for his dry sense of humor, and he gets along really well with students. He's, again, works with a lot of our struggling students, and he just doesn't get ruffled. And the kids play off of that, and just a really warm, inviting classroom. He also has been an avid tutor, which is great because then he can take those strategies and apply them in his classroom. He coaches basketball, and he also still plays basketball. And his claim to fame is that he is about, I think he said his record, he plays with Bob Calder, another math teacher. They played 2-on-2 students in the morning. They lost their first game out of like 120 games or something like that last week, so they were undefeated up until recently. So they have a good time. And the kids appreciate that as well. And he continues to grow by working with the math coach. Jeanette Lawler is an English teacher, and she also came to us from another school and is thrilled to be at North High. I think her biggest adjustment, honestly, was adjusting to how well-behaved the kids were and realizing that she could challenge them at a level that she was not used to, and so she's been doing a great job with that. She co-teaches with 2 different teachers and has an excellent rapport with her students and her colleagues. In fact, her name is often cited on our senior exit survey as somebody who has positively impacted her. She's been a volunteer coach for softball and for lacrosse, and she's now a paid softball coach, and she helps out our speech meets. She is also a member of the PBIS committee, and she's our contact to get the therapy dogs during finals exam week, so she helps out with that as well. Jeanette works with a literacy coach and is pursuing her master's degree in CNI. Terry Mandarino is one of our counselors, but she's in charge of our College and Career Center. And so she's actually been with us for 6 years. She spent the first couple years as part-time and then went full-time 4 years ago. And some things that I think she's done that are really creative is she's brought back some North High alum to speak with students about their different college experiences. And so there's a panel, and they can kind of hear about different colleges from our students' perspectives. She also has a week in October where she opens up the College and Career Center for help with students that need college application help or essay help. And then, of course, she does a lot with our parent functions that we do in the evening as well. Terry is a strong advocate for our underrepresented students. She has helped with UMS, UWS as well, and she works very closely with our AVID program. Sonia Magib is a special ed teacher who I often think is in the English department because she's actually dual certified, and she co-teaches with English, and she teaches the special ed Read 180 section. So this is a huge advantage for our district to have a special ed teacher teaching so many English classes, because we really have two very highly qualified teachers in the classroom. So that's fantastic. She promotes risk-taking herself in the classroom by making herself vulnerable and participating in different activities that help students become more comfortable with them. She started our STAND Club, which is about diversity and understanding each other, and she is one of our district SEED facilitators, seeking equity and equality and diversity. That's one of the workshops that our teachers can sign up for, to understand people who are different than they are. Courtney White is actually one of our SEED facilitators as well. And she serves on our diversity committee as well, and she's a Strive tutor. And then last, we have Ashley Remigi. She's a science teacher who co-teaches. Again, she works with some of our struggling students and is fantastic at that. She too coaches. What's interesting is that she coaches boys track. So one of the few females who coaches a boys sport, and she also coaches diving. She is a sophomore AVID teacher, so this is her second year in the AVID program after being a tutor for a few years. And one of the things I love about Ashley is she's got a ton of energy and enthusiasm. She goes to our elite weekends, our snowball weekends. She's always dressed up in spirit wear. She goes to our Olympics, participates in the PEP assemblies. So she's really a great role model for our students. And she's been working with a literacy coach on vocabulary, which is vocabulary and biology is hard. And she's pursuing her master's degree in CNA. So those are the North High teachers.
All right, for the Southside, I was making my list and it felt like it should be longer, but we have 3 or 4 other teachers who've been here 4 years or more, but their 4 years of continuous full-time service was interrupted with part-time years. So even though they've been around a lot longer, they're not here recommended for tenure yet. First tonight is Danielle Conrad. Danielle is one of our speech pathologists, and she works closely with the students in our multi-needs program. She's skilled at working one-on-one and with groups of students. But one thing you'll see in our multi-needs program is all our therapists work together. So with the OT and PT, they really collaborate together to serve the kids' needs and cross their needs, whether it's physical, speech, or whatever. So Danielle does a great job of incorporating technology too when she's working with kids, whether it's just the Google tools or the kids' specific individual assistive technology. Maureen Gilman is a member of our special services department. She team teaches in the social studies department. She also teaches the instructional level social studies classes to our LD students. Maureen's very low-key, calm, laid back, but she's very caring, and that traits of her really helps her with her compassion for the kids, because she's very nurturing and working with the kids. She's been involved in many different sports over the last few years. This year she's on a hiatus from coaching as she just gave birth to her first child, but when she's not coaching, you often see her working and helping out events. Lindsay Long teaches both PE and health, and she does a great job in both arenas. Often that can be difficult, transitioning back and forth between the two, but Lindsay's very adept at that, and she is very fitness-based in her instruction, and she uses that knowledge of both to support both curriculums. She's got a great rapport with the kids, and she spends a lot of time with the kids outside the classroom, as she is the head girls basketball coach and the freshman girls softball coach. Nicole Sanders. Nicole is a North High grad whose mom, when I came to the district, was a secretary at South and is now a secretary at North. And so Nicole co-teaches both math and science. And one thing about Nicole, you go into the class that she co-teaches with her teachers, there's never a kid off task, because the minute they start deviating, those teachers are right there and constantly supportive, but constantly making sure that they meet their expectations. Another one who's involved in about every aspect of South High. She's the head girls track coach. She's one of the Superfan sponsors. She works with our JKB leadership program and works about any number of events you can describe. I've personally known Nicole since she was about 13, so it's been fun watching her not only grow up, but now see her grow as a teacher. Kim Tobin. Kim is a member of our World Languages Department, specifically our EL and bilingual programs. And as you saw a couple board meetings ago when our bilingual and EL kids came and presented, by the very nature of that program, they get very close to the students. They're their advocates, they're their comfort zone, and Kim fills that role just great. Kim, when she's not with kids, she serves many roles. As our bilingual facilitator, she's often helping the administration, other teachers in communication with families. She hosts our Bilingual Parent Advisory Council and has a great working relationship with that group of parents. And when she's not doing all that, she's probably in the library working with the librarians to find other resources that she can use with her kids. And finally, Vel Vetri is one of our counselors in the Counseling Student Support Services Department. Vel has a clinical background, and it comes through in his working with students and staff. He's very professional. He's very linear in his progression, and you often see people asking Vel to consult with them on different cases. So Vel also helps out with our clubs. He's the Cultures in Action sponsor. He's the newly formed equity team. He's a member of that committee, and like I said, he's always working with his colleagues. So that's the Southside group.
And I'm honored to jump in and talk about Jenny Patrick with you, some of her accomplishments. Jenny's our Transition 99 vocational coordinator, and she's actually, this is her 5th year, so she was part-time her 1st year and then went through the 4 years now. This year is 4th. Probably the biggest thing is her leadership to her team has really helped to expand our vocational experiences through internships, the employment outcomes. So we're really pleased with that. She's also helped to develop partnerships with the community. I'm going to list a few of them, but there's many more. But she's helped to coordinate partnerships with Midwestern University, Good Samaritan Hospital, the College of DuPage, Honey Jam Cafe, Hilton Oak Brook Hills, and again, those are just to name a few of them that she's partnered with for giving that experience for the students. One of the things I like about Jenny is that she has created a parent resource for transition services for parents for when they're going on to adulthood. She also holds parent nights, resource nights, to go over different things to get kids ready for after T99. And I'm going to have to read it to you because she gave me, I was asking her about what she's involved with, but it'll kind of go to a testament of her, but she's has gone on Snowball, but she's also a member of the College of DuPage's Vocational Skills Committee. She's a liaison to with D99 and the Chicagoland Transition League, and a member of the DuPage Transition Committee. So obviously a theme there, but that's her role, and she's done an excellent job with us, and we're excited to recommend her for 10 years. So.
Great.
All right.
So thank you. It's always so heartening to hear about the qualifications of the people who work for us. And again, any questions, get them to Hank.
Absolutely.
The next
Sounds like a great class.
Yeah.
Are we ready?
Very good.
All right, so we're going to circle back to North High student perspectives.
So was there an accident?
Yeah, literally outside. So there was one on Ogden from my way home from track practice, and then there's one outside right now, so I had to go all the way around.
What is it?
Flashing lights out there right now.
Someone's car accident. Someone like hit the. There's 2 cars.
Go ahead.
All right.
Good evening. Good evening. I'm Marc Novella. I'm the Director of Student Activities at North High School. And it's my pleasure to introduce our UMS, United Men of Strength, United Women of Strength group this evening. I've been fortunate to address the board a number of times over the last 7 years, but this may be the most proud I am to introduce a group of students and even talk before you. And that's because of the impact that this student group has had in our building in a very short period of time. In fact, I think it's only been about 1.5 years that this group has been in existence. And during that time, they've done a lot of work to not only promote diversity, but give students a voice, as well as just put on some terrific events for our students. And so that's why we wanted to recognize them this evening. And so I have Christian, and then PJ is also a member of the group as well. So I'm going to ask her maybe to just share some of her experiences with United Men of Strength and United Women of Strength.
Hi, everybody. I just think it's a great opportunity to have kids of any real background to just have a time to share their different experiences, because everybody comes from a different walk of life, and you kind of feed off of that positive energy, so it kind of gives you just more of a positive outlook for the rest of the day. Plus, it's a time to reflect on certain topics that might happen in your life or just outside of the classroom in your own personal time and whatnot, to where you could really share that with somebody else, and somebody else actually might say wow, that similar thing happened to me. It's just a really great experience to have other people to kind of connect to, that you might not have necessarily thought that you could in the first place, but then found out, hey, this is a really cool thing that we kind of share in common, or hey, this happened through it, but this is how I got through it, and I just think it's a really cool experience. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. I was just going to add that it was me and a senior who graduated. We just wanted to start kind of an African American student group at our school, just because it's something that I felt we kind of needed, just because the population's so small, and it's kind of nice to have people to relate to. And we've had, Mr. White, Ms. Demlow, and Ms. Schwartz have been great at helping us with whatever we needed. It's just so positive, and I've seen there's freshmen through seniors, and you can just see I guess when the students walk in, you can just see they're excited to learn something about themselves, or kind of release emotions or anything they have. Something really interesting and fun that we just did was we had a field trip, and we went to Bronzeville, we went to the Chicago History Museum, we went to Pearls, which was really good. So it was awesome. I'm glad that we have it, and I hope it sticks around. So.
Did you also go to a church?
Oh, yes, we went to a church. Oh, Reverend Martin was amazing. We basically listened to a reverend, and he kind of talked about issues that are going on now. We talked about race, class, gender, the flag, everything, just things that are going on at the moment. And he gave us his perspective on it, especially since he was so active in the civil rights movement and advocating for African American men. It was just kind of awesome to hear a different perspective, because you don't really hear that a lot. So, yeah.
I didn't want to share anything. I was going to let the kids kind of speak for themselves, so I don't want to share much, because I do want to let you guys get your meeting on, because I know you're going to be here a lot later than I'm going to be here. But it has been about a year and a half, as Mark said, that the group has started. And the group kind of started with conversations that PJ and I had in my office when she wasn't in my class. And we kind of got the idea and the brainchild. I brought it to Janice, and Janice kind of led it from there, and we kind of got it together, and it's been moving forward from there. Janae and I started the meetings and ran the meetings. Now we've gotten to the point where the students are running the meetings themselves. PJ is actually one of the ones creating that, and we kind of just get the room settled for them, and we kind of let them go. So the last couple of meetings have been student-led, and Janae and I kind of sit back and watch the kids do their thing. So it's been really great, and we're looking to move forward even more, because these two are graduating, so we got to find 2 more leaders next year. So thank you.
How often do you guys meet?
We try and meet every 3 weeks-ish or so. It really all depends on my calendar and Janae's calendar and what room we have available. We've been going about monthly at this point. We haven't met since before the field trip, mainly because summative time with Janae and I writing those and doing master schedules kind of taking most of our time there, but we're going to get another meeting in before spring break.
Is it a single group or 2 groups? You said United Men and United Women of Strength.
Yeah.
Is it just one single group?
We started out with 2 separate groups, doing the men in one and the women in the other, and then we just brought it all together. We all meet in the alumni room. They bring their lunch. Janice was nice enough to bring lunch, or have cookies, I guess, was one time. But the kids grab their lunch and they come in, and we try and rotate the meeting dates so they're not missing the same class, because it is during school. Sometimes we'll do it in the morning, sometimes we'll be doing it over the lunch hours, sometimes we'll do it at the end of the day. Really depends on where we are and what we did last time. But PJ and Naomi, who was supposed to be here tonight as well, I don't know what happened to her, have been kind of coming up with the agenda items and then running it by Janae and myself.
How many students do you have in your meetings?
On our list, we're probably at about 40 to 45.
Very good.
And pretty much most of them make the meetings every time. It's gotten to the point now where we're like, okay, now we got to make sure it's like a co-curricular thing. We're looking at grades. We have the grade report systems coming out. I'm pulling kids in the hallway and I'm saying, hey, what's going on with this class? Hey, what's going on with that class? At the very least, it's got them thinking, all right, I've got to get something going on with math or science or English, whatever the case may be.
Well, thank you, too, for inviting South. So thanks for that collaboration, because my daughter did attend the field trip to Bronzeville, and she mentioned Pearls. So thank you for collaborating with them, because I don't believe there is a similar group at South yet, right?
I don't know.
That was the
Multicultural class.
that went on the trip.
Okay. So, yeah, the class attended there. Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought.
They didn't plan it together.
It was together.
Yeah, okay. Awesome. Thank you.
So approximately what percentage of African-American students from North are in the group?
Oh, in the group?
50%?
About 50%?
I don't know how many of
Wow, that's...
how many percentage of the African American students are in the group at North?
Yeah, probably a little bit less than.
But it's only
Yeah.
That's
I have kids who.
tremendous.
I get questions all the time. How can I get into
only
this?
existed. That was my point, right?
Is there any thought to
They haven't started one.
expanding over to South, or?
As a district group. Janae and I haven't talked about that. We have talked about expanding the group within North, trying to make it a little bit more accessible. And again, it's just whenever we can kind of get into our calendars to get those meetings done. We do like to have it as a leadership group, so they are taking the charge of getting the word out, if you will. We haven't talked about it. It's one of those things that might come up.
You don't want it to be too large, because then you can't manage it, but wow, that's an incredible participation rate.
Particularly so my daughter mentioned it after the scholarship thing, and she mentioned, so she wasn't aware of it, but I think it would be great as two separate groups, one at North and one at South, and then some collaboration events would be great.
Right. It's really, really positive. Something else that we did was we went to go see Hidden Figures, and we all talked about it after, had pizza. I don't know. I just feel like it's such a positive thing for African American students at North, especially with some of my friends I know. They transferred from the city, so they've never really had exposure, or I don't know. They just say that it really helps them. So yeah.
And again, the leadership from this senior class has been amazing. So Janae and I have some work to do to try and get on some of the juniors to start stepping up, because we only have a couple months left. So it's been very positive. It really has. And I appreciate working with the kids. And as long as they're taking the lead, it's one less thing on my plate that I have to do. And I love some of the stuff that they're bringing up and having discussions about, because a lot of it is popular culture. Some of it is current events and everything in between. And there's some very sharp kids in there, and they're aware. They definitely are. So sometimes it gets tense in there. There have been some kids that have had some emotional outbreaks in there, and rightfully so. We let them have their space and share some of their concerns, and then we do our best to direct them to wherever they need to go to get more help from that.
Why'd you bring the guys and gals together?
It was easier. It's easier to schedule
Is it
two
pretty
periods.
evenly split between?
It is.
Yeah, it is.
Right.
It is.
And then certain meetings, I don't know, certain topics we talk about, it would just make more sense for guys and girls to hear it. And we also get different perspectives.
Yeah, no, I like it. Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. It just makes more sense to have guys and girls, because there's some things that where gender might might separate us, but at the same time, there are things where gender isn't a factor in it. For instance, you brought up that music video that we showed about, what was that, last meeting?
Lucas Joyner, yeah.
Yeah, so that was something that we had both groups together for, and we've done that more recently than not, versus last year. I remember we were a little bit more separate, but this year we're more together, and it seems like that actually works out better because we're reaching a point across through both groups versus having one point made in another, and then the other group didn't even know that point was made, so it's kind of there's a missed loop to where that they're now kind of both conjoined together.
Yeah, sometimes it's no different than the racial difference, the gender too.
Correct.
Just understanding the perspective of a male versus female. So I love it.
Yeah, and then one more thing that I wanted to bring up that's also really positive is Mr. White and Ms. Demel have been talking about bringing teachers into the meetings possibly, just to see, or just so they can understand perspective and like what it's like possibly being the only African American in like an AP class and or like an honors class, or just being like the only one like in a certain setting. And I don't know, I just think it'd be important for teachers to hear because they do care. And I've definitely gotten close to a lot of my teachers, especially talking about like race and like how it's affected me. So I think it's important.
I think you're right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So Walt Williams, who is our parent liaison, also comes to this group.
Oh, yeah, Mr. Williams.
And I just wanted to mention that both Courtney and Janae just do this out of the goodness of their hearts. They do not get a stipend or anything else for this. They do it because they know that they're making a difference. And that is why they were nominated and received the Director of Student Activities Director Award. So we're really happy to see that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Did you want to do student board member questions and comments?
If PJ had anything else you wanted to
Oh,
add?
yeah. Kevin Sullivan just won state for diving, which is awesome. A lot of people just came back from Snowball, and they loved it. We just had the African American read-in, which was amazing. The library was packed all 3 periods. And DECA had 3 state champions, which were Julia McGuire, Nick Miller, and Max Miller. So, yeah.
Very good. Very good. Lots to be proud of there at North.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, moving back to the board workshop, the master facility plan engagement update.
So we've, Jill and I have been busy presenting at a variety of different local events, Pizza Wars. We have a Westmont, I think, meeting on Wednesday. So just a variety of different presentations. Wednesday night, we're going to have finance night here where Mark will go through our budget and how the referendum could impact our tax base going forward and how that fiscally functions now and into the future. So, and then a week from Wednesday on the 14th, we're working on doing, I mentioned it the last time, a Facebook Live session on the master facility plan. So there'll be a blast with information coming out on that soon. So if somebody wasn't ever able to make it out of their house to see this stuff, they can do master facility plan in their pajamas, and we'll go
Sounds
through
like a plan to me.
pajamas. They can have their glass of wine, and we can answer all their questions that way as well. So we're getting close to the end here to figure out what the community will support on March 20th. So we hope there's a big turnout and people come out and vote.
Any questions or?
And early voting started today, right?
Today.
Yep, today.
Yes.
Did it?
Yep.
Yes, it did. Scary.
And just on an aside, and it's not on the agenda, but you did mention Pizza Wars, and I just wanted to acknowledge the foundation for a fabulous event this year again.
Yeah, and I wanted to thank everybody for coming. It was just really a wonderful event. We had 630 paid tickets, which is the most we've ever had. And I think everything went very smoothly. There was only a few lines, and I think everybody got to taste the pizzas. And our winner was Papa's in Woodbridge. So please.
New winner.
New winner.
Yeah. Please try all of our pizza vendors. You get a chance to just rotate. There's one a month.
If you go to, I think it's pizzawars.org, right, is the website that has all the information on it from
And
the
if
foundation.
you kept your program, I think there are coupons in there for our vendors. So please try to support them because they've given a lot. When you think of that many pizza slices.
Yeah, it's a great night. The sponsors show up, they bring their staff, they donate the pizza, they're there for a whole evening. It's a great community event.
Yeah, all for a plaque.
Yeah.
Even if they didn't win, frequent their
Winners in our hearts.
All for philanthropy.
That's right.
Yes. So I'll Probably at our next meeting, I'll have the details on the rewards of it. So.
Theater, craft, and acting classes, department change?
All right, I'm going to turn this one over to Gina.
Okay. We have several courses, our acting courses and our theater craft. We have 3 levels of acting. These courses meet the fine arts requirement, the graduation requirement, but they are actually housed out of our English department. So the courses come under the English umbrella. The teachers at both schools, North and South, also teach English classes. However, the state of Illinois adopted Illinois Arts Learning Standards, and those standards specifically apply to, well, a multitude of areas, but specifically apply to acting and theater craft. As well as, several years ago, we had to link all of our courses to state course codes, so there's a secondary course catalog, and those courses fall under the performing arts, fine arts area in the catalog. So the state basically views these courses as fine arts courses. These courses do not earn English credit. So, we have 4 years required of English. They do not earn any English credit at all, even though they're taught by teachers who are certified to both teach these courses as well as the English courses. So we are recommending that we move those courses such that they will be housed in the fine arts department. Those teachers will be part of both departments. So they'll be part of fine arts, they'll be part of English. We currently have several teachers in the district that are shared between departments already. It will not impact students. In other words, they'll take the courses even if they're housed in fine arts. They'll still, like they do now, meet the fine arts requirement. So it will not adversely affect students at all. So we're advocating to move those courses out of the English department and into the fine arts department.
They didn't get English credit for them, though, did they? They got fine arts credit.
Correct.
They got fine arts, even though they were housed in the English department. So it's going to be the same for students. Students who are interested are still going to sign up for the courses, and they'll still get the fine arts credit. Regardless, the department affiliation for students really doesn't make much of a difference. I have had students, or parents, I should say, ask about fine arts classes when they're actually talking about acting. So sometimes we even get parents who will think they're in fine arts when we actually house them in our academic planning guide as well in English. So it might be a little clearer for people.
Gina, with them working in both departments, how will they do the evaluation process, and then which department chair will they report to, or will it be both, or how's that going to work?
Well, they'll obviously fall in both departments, and we actually just met today to talk about what that'll look like in terms of observations and who's primary and who's secondary. Their primary affiliation will be with English because they teach more English than they teach acting or theater craft. I mean, we could see that change if more students sign up, but for years it's been that way. But certainly both department chairs will have some role. Exactly what that looks like, we haven't determined yet.
Okay. Remember, we're still kind of revamping some of our teacher evaluation program this year, so we want to make sure we're through all of that before we make the final determinations of how this all kind of shakes out. Yeah.
And the teachers know, as well as, of course, the department chairs, about this recommendation.
So this will come, we'll take any questions in a second, but this will come back at the next board meeting for formal approval for a vote. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut off any other questions.
Any other questions?
The only question I would have is there any impact to a student's review of college applications? Because in the prior years, it would have appeared as another English course because it's in the English department. Now it's in the fine arts. Is there any difference to the students?
No, because the, go ahead, Gina.
Sorry. Because the courses didn't earn English credit, it has zero impact. So on the transcript, it doesn't matter which department it is, it shows that the student took acting.
Okay.
Or theater craft, whatever course it is.
Okay, anything else? Great. So moving on, let's talk about Every Student Succeeds Act, or ESSA.
This is part of our ongoing mini-series on so I think this is part 7 of the drama. Or 8, I don't know.
Feels like it.
But as I hope you've seen, this is pretty broad change in accountability. Gina's tried to give it to you in little drips and drabs and bits and pieces. She did attend, what was that, last week or the week?
I've attended 2 in the last week,
In the
or
last-
last 2 weeks, excuse me. One was a ESSA conference put out by basically through the state, and the other one was through a private company and walking school administrators on how ESSA will look. And unfortunately, I didn't learn anything new, and I don't mean that in a negative way, because we actually dug into it. I mean, we were looking at 140-page documents, so we were digging in. It's all of what we kind of knew, and they talked a little bit about what is still yet to come, but they're the things that we pretty much shared were still to come. So it doesn't really bring any clarity on this presentation tonight, unfortunately.
The good news of going to that is that it reaffirmed that Gina knows everything that.
Stop right there. Gina knows everything.
No, let's just not even say that.
I think that's a sitcom, isn't it?
Gosh.
It is now.
Thanks. So we'll move forward. I will say we're going to look tonight at math, but we're really now starting to get into the weeds. You know, Dr. Thiele, came into my office one day last week, and I was going through a list of students, kid by kid, who didn't meet the criteria to figure out kid by kid why. Looking at what classes did they take, what grades did they get, because we're down now to this smaller group. So I'm going to try and share a lot of data with you tonight, but I'm going to bring it back to the very simple fact of this group of kids, or the kids that are not meeting, we're still looking for patterns. So even going student by student, I can find some patterns, but I can't say it's a one-size-fits-all type of thing. So we're going to look at some very specific data, but then I'm going to bring it back. Okay. So tonight we're going to look at math. In terms of in the next few months, I left that to say in the next few months, we have not gotten input from the state on attendance. We've not gotten input on state from programs of study, co-curriculars, or any of the other aspects. So I'm not sure when we'll be able to come back with that. Just to review, this is the criteria for the Distinguished Scholar. It is the highest ranking. The highest you can get is Distinguished Scholar, the GPA requirement, high ACT and SAT scores, which we looked at already. So this is sort of just a review. But they'll also need academic indicators, which we'll look at in a minute. So when we look at this highest group.
All of them, they have to meet all of them?
They have to meet all of them.
Okay.
However, that said, these are the academic indicators. So if you look at the right on the chart, those are some of the academic indicators we're going to look at tonight. They have to meet one of those. They still have to meet the 30 ACT, the 1400 SAT, and the attendance, which we don't know exactly how it will look. So we're going to talk a little bit tonight about AP and grades and Algebra 2 at any time, primarily during junior or senior year. So in doing that, we'll look at North High first. So North High, and these are numbers you've seen before, at least for the GPA column. And this is like the class of 2016-17. And then I took 2 classes together to try and look for a 2-year average. So we have 54 students who met that criteria. Remember, they need to have one other indicator. One indicator is a 3 or higher on a math AP test. 40 students met that. Another indicator is grades of A through C in an AP math class. Still have to have senior year math. 44 met that. And then when we look at that math criteria in GPA, it actually comes to 51 unique students. It's about 10% of the class. And then you can carry that down where we're looking at about 14%. And I can't see, sorry.
12.6.
At 12%. 12% is the average for the 2 years. So that's the highest group, just for math. We look at South High, we look at the same criteria. We've seen the 51 from the class of 2016 before, the 36 from the class of 2017. When I went in and I looked at AP scores and I looked at grades in AP, and then we look at unique students, 49 of the 51 in 2016 met the criteria. About a little over 7%, about 5% or 5.6% for 2017, and the average about 6.5%. So that's for that highest group, the Distinguished Scholars. But we're going to spend more time today looking at the college and career ready group. Remember, if you're in the Distinguished group, you're automatically, because you have that GPA of 3.75 or higher, you obviously have that 2.8 GPA. We need some more clarification on attendance, and we need some more clarification on the college and career pathway. So, again, we're going to look at the right side of the chart. So math specifically, AP exams, AP grades, minimum ACT and SAT scores, as well as Algebra 2 anytime. In doing that, you kind of can look at the total number of students in the class. So for example, in 2016 at North High, there were 474 graduates. 132 of them, by the way, did not meet that standard. So when we look at them, we looked at, okay, why didn't they meet? 41 students didn't meet the GPA, but actually met the ACT and SAT standard. I thought that was sort of interesting. So they didn't have the GPA, but they have the test scores. We had just a handful, as I sort of expected, didn't meet the GPA, but actually had a 3 or higher on an AP math test. We would assume if you're taking AP math, you'd have that higher GPA, and then we looked at grades. So when we looked at those students who didn't meet the GPA but met another criteria, we came out with 94 students. There was another criteria which I actually didn't list there because it is another one of those things that we have to understand more once rulemaking is done. As you look at the state ESSA plan, all over it, it talks about Algebra 2, Algebra 2, Algebra 2, and basically grades of A through C in Algebra 2. But it never looks at integrated math. So I'm reading through trying to find this. I can't find it. And when I've asked questions at different, I do not get an answer. Now, some might say that Algebra 2 might be Math 3, but you could reasonably argue that it's Math 2. So I used the criteria of Math 3 just because we needed something. That number will be higher if we're using Math 2, because when I went through all the kids who weren't, a lot of the kids that weren't meeting, for example, they hadn't gotten an A through C in Math 3, but they had in Math 2. So that's something that needs some clarification. So I didn't make it as a special column. I thought that might be a little too much of an assumption there. So we looked at the same thing, looking at, again, the number of students, the number that met the criteria. I think these are really impressive scores. So 436 out of 474 students, 92% met the criteria from the class of 2016. 85.8% for the class of 2017, and then obviously the average there is 88.7%. So really impressive data. And again, I went through those 38 students and what's missing? What are they lacking? There are some patterns, but without knowing for sure about the Math 2, Math 3, I'm a little reluctant to say that I have any definitive answers on that. We did the same thing for South High School. We looked at the total number of students, how many students did not meet the criteria, but yet met the ACT or the SAT score, met the 3 or higher in AP, the grades of A through C, and then those that did not meet the GPA but met another standard. And again, I looked at Math 3. And then our overall. So for example, in 2016, there were 656 total students, for the class of 2016, I should say. 538 met the criteria, which is 82%. And then 81.7 for 2017, and when you average it to 81%. So we have, our next focus, of course, is going to be on that 18% of students. But as I've gone through, like I said, I'm looking for patterns, and I'm still waiting for some clarifications on criteria. So questions?
So when we look at patterns, are we looking at things like lower socioeconomic groups?
I have not broken it down to that degree yet, but we absolutely have to.
We'll eventually, like, our goal is to get to course pathways. Like, what courses did you take, maybe even outside of the math department? What partner school did you come from? What group of teachers did you have? Is it somebody who took advantage of math resource? There's a whole bunch of things to start. But when you get down to under 200 students, you're down to manageable numbers where you could look at each individual kid and figure out what their story is and what can we figure out there. Plus, we can start tracking this stuff from freshman year on, that they're projecting the wrong direction. So how do we point them in the right direction so they don't end up being one of those 200 and we keep shrinking that number down.
And I want to continue to track them beyond that, so when they graduate. And we have some systems now that we're working with that we can do that to some degree. I mean, some of it's difficult to do. So for example, I went through some students who actually met the GPA for College Career Ready. But they didn't meet some of the other requirements. So they have the GPA, but they don't have the other requirements. So I started looking. Many of them were students who either, the 1 year, the state didn't require the ACT or SAT, so they never took an ACT or SAT. Well, you can't meet the criteria if you didn't take the test. Some of the students only took the, well, actually, I think I only found 2 in a whole group of students that only took the test 1 time. Well, we all know that many students will take it. Well, are those students going to COD? Because oftentimes students who are going to COD, they have to take placement exams anyway. So they're not necessarily going to take a second ACT or SAT. So I want to get even beyond us to kind of look at what that looks like beyond us, if that makes sense.
Is the goal to get as close to 100% of those students college and career ready? I mean, I'm trying to grasp where this is going.
To be college and career ready.
You know, I mean, we've got 18%, which, you know, at South High, that's what, 200 students, you say? You think?
18.
118. That's a lot of students that are falling below the crack. I mean, that's where I'm thinking this is.
And there could be more, or there could even be less, depending on how the state rules on some of this. So for example, if Math 2, because integrated math is not mentioned in the plan, if Math 2 qualifies, that number will go way down. Like the number of students that meet will be much higher. So, you know, some of this, it's hard, like attendance, 95%. I'm not really sure how they're going to evaluate that yet.
But even if they meet that goal, that doesn't guarantee that they're going to be successful in, you know, their college or or career path.
What the research shows us is that they are far more likely to be successful after high school if they meet. And remember, there's one more tier after this of experiences and things that we can cobble together over a high school career that indicates that they are college and career ready. So there's still one more set of rulemaking for one more pathway that's more built around what students do, the experiences they have, what they're active in at high school. Of that 118 that would qualify under this last pathway, that we don't have any of the rules made for yet.
Well, that, and it's a little more gray.
Yeah, that's very gray.
You know,
But that's why this is
it's
so
hard to
great.
grasp that and put a number or a letter or whatever you want to put with it. I guess I'm just having a hard time grasping some of this.
Well, it's hard because so much of it's unknown at this time.
Right.
Right, I can't report on some of this because I don't know. So yeah, it's hard.
And they want this to be prepared for the fall?
No,
I mean,
it's a year from the fall.
a year from the fall that we have to be prepared for whatever evaluation that they've put with these numbers.
Correct. Many school districts aren't even discussing this with their boards yet. You guys are in the advanced group, okay? So you're in the distinguished scholars
Well,
group.
sometimes I feel like I'm like drowning because
a lot of this is like to be determined, right? But we want, rather than a year from now, you try to absorb all of this. We want to kind of
I'm trying to grasp
give you a
where
little
you
bit.
want us to be.
Well, here's the
Just
good,
getting the idea of what wraps around this right now.
here's the good news, right? This is a snapshot right now based on what we know. These numbers are only going to get better when we have more information.
More solid information.
That's right. And then the goal in all of this is to really be a better indicator of what's actually happening, because under previous rules, it was giving, I think, the community, a lot of people, the false impression that that we weren't as successful as, in fact, we really.
Well, that was No Child Left
That
Behind.
was looking at one score. It was looking at one test.
And saying that's the indicator. And when we know that, hey, our students are leaving our buildings and going out and having great success in all different things. And this is just a better way of measuring. And we already look pretty doggone good. based on what we know. And in fact, we're going to be better than that once we get the additional information.
I don't know. I'm worried about that 18%, or that, and I don't know, I forget what the number was at North. I'm worried about
It was like 11.
Yeah, I don't
But
think.
see, I think this is the right thing to do,
Yeah.
because our indicators will look good, but it's the right thing to do. And by identifying, I mean, I really commend you, because I think by identifying where the trends are and where the holes are is where you can build your wraparound supports. And we know that works so well in other areas, like special education and other areas. I mean, I commend you. I think this is a great approach.
I agree, Nancy, and it's not to play off what Dr. Thiele is sharing, in terms of us being in the more advanced group right now. It's really you all that are in the more advanced group, because you're not waiting for the state to figure this stuff out. Here's what we know right now, and what kind of actions can we take now instead of waiting till a year from this fall to do something. So to be commended. So thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Were you going to say something?
No, I was just ditto.
Thank you.
I'm always confused by this, and maybe I've asked this before, but S is not tied to funding, correct?
It's not evidence-based model, correct.
Yeah, okay.
This is the accountability, so this replaces No Child Left Behind. This is kind of our rating as a school district.
Okay, so that was my question. Is this really meant just for parents to be able to take a look at a school and determine whether it's a good school or not?
No, actually, what I think the true...
Or is it just more of a self-improvement model for us to use internally?
Yes, both.
But it ends up being both.
It'll be both. Okay. I think what it does, in some ways, it will come down to what our rating is and what people rate your school with and what goes on your website and all of those kinds of things. But more importantly, and I think what Gina's doing a great job of illustrating for us, is it provides another set of tools to allow us to know all of our kids, and especially those that need some additional support, right? And ones that before might have been allowed to fall through the cracks that now don't, right? And we figure out what happens with those students. It gives us a whole lot of ways to measure student progress over 4 years, so that students are really prepared for whatever comes next after high school. And that kids don't get missed, and there's a lot more ways for kids to show that they're successful, but there's a lot more ways for kids to get on our radar as well, that there's some kind of spot where a kid needs help, and that's what it should be providing for us. And then it does reward us for doing good work, right? And that's what you always hope to get rewarded for, is doing good by kids, and this should do that for us.
There will be a database of like an ESSA rating for all schools in Illinois?
Yeah, absolutely.
Only one of 4
Can
tiers.
schools manipulate their scores?
I think that there will be some of that, yes. There's always there's always opportunities for that, especially there's going to be, eventually the idea of this is there's going to be certain areas that are local control. And we haven't found out exactly what those things are, but things like extracurriculars or community service, programs of study. There's going to be certain points where the state only comes down so far, and then they turn it over to the board to say, okay, now you decide within your school district what things check those boxes. I think in some schools there could be potential for people to play games with what checks those boxes. I believe that this board and this community will truly look and weigh through those things and figure out what's best for kids, and that's what I expect we'll do when we're charged with that task, and we won't play those games.
So checking the boxes will be purely up to, there will be no standard on that, is what you're saying, as far as?
It'll be up to the board under local control to set the standards for what those things are. So, for example, extracurriculars, it may be up to the board to determine what counts as extracurriculars for meeting that requirements or the co-curricular box, right? So the board will have to come to you with some recommendations, like, are we going to count being in a church youth group as a co-curricular? Are we going to count scouts? Are we going to count being an Olympic swimmer? Or are we going to just count the things that happen inside of our walls? I believe that'll be a spot where we'll have to kind of talk through and how that works, and then depending on how the board chooses to recognize those things, then we'll have to figure out policy or practices for recording that and reporting it to the states and all of those things. Because I imagine you're going to reach a certain point where the state's just going to say, give us a yes or no that this happened, because they're not going to be interested in us reporting every different type of activity, right? They're just going to say, did the kid participate in the number of co-curriculars or not?
Well,
Right.
it'll be an honor system.
Yeah, which there are a few things that we already do that that's that way, so that wouldn't be unusual. What I've been presenting on primarily will not be that way. That goes through the state information system, so we upload student grades and scores. The state has an arrangement with the College Board to get SAT scores, so a lot of that will not be. But there's other things we report that are an honors system already. So this will.
Well, and I think this district has had a reputation for being very truthful in that regard. It's not like we're trying to pad our muscle, let's say. We've been very forthcoming to our district. So.
Kudos. Anything else? If not, we'll move on to the reception of visitors. This is an opportunity for audience members to address the board on any topic pertaining to Community High School District 99. Is there anybody who wishes to address the board? Hearing none, we have a call for adjournment.
Oh, so moved.
Terry moves.
Second. Dan.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.